the drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
You know, one of the things that I've learned on this job is that the guys that the fans are clamoring to get traded, like everybody wants Porzingis traded, is also because his trade value is very low right now relative to what it could be after the postseason run and the illness and everything that he's been dealing with. And when you look at guys like, Marcus Smart, he was probably traded right before his value really sunk, or a lot of these players over the years. So what are, is there a chance here that they kind of don't sell on Porzingis right now, considering that his value is kind of at an all-time low for him, and maybe bring him back in the fall and see if he plays better for the first few months and trade him at the deadline? Or like, could you see any, something like that happening, and maybe a trade of a guy like, I don't think anybody would want to see Derek White or Peyton Pritchard be traded this summer after the years that they had and the contracts they're on. But I'm sure that a lot more teams want those two contracts on their books than Porzingis or Drew Holiday. So how do you kind of balance those two things as you're forecasting kind of how the offseason might play out here?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. So there's a couple things before I dive fully into the answer on that I do want to reference, because I think they're important to know. Celtics do not need to get under this second apron by the start of the season or anything like that, because like you said, they could bring the whole team back and be like, we'll work on it, up through the trade deadline. And we already talked about, they don't even really need to do it by the trade deadline, but that's probably more likely. And the reason why you do it in the summertime, it's just a lot easier. You have teams with exceptions available. You have teams with cap space available. You have, roster limits increase. So you can do a 3-for-1 type of trade where you're, taking back more guys than you send out, and those sorts of things that happen that just don't exist when you're in season with that. The other piece is, with that is you can always make those trades later if that's where you feel you need to, just from a performance standpoint, if you really wanted to get there. So that's it. And then I would say trade value wise, yeah, Porzingis it's not great. It's probably lower than it was even when the Celtics got him. And it's important to remember the Celtics got a first round pick in that trade to bring Porzingis in. Now, that pick came ultimately from the Grizzlies for Marcus Smart, but that was kind of a sense of where the Wizards are like, yeah, we're not, this guy's just going to pick up his player option and make life more difficult for us if we don't move him. So let's just, get off this contract. And then, obviously it ended up working out for the Celtics the way it worked out, which was, in a title. But yeah, with this mystery illness that he's been dealing with, which is, who knows where that is. And I've talked to people around the league who are like, if that thing lingers into next year, like this is, now you're talking about his entire career trajectory changes, because no one's going to, even as it is, then it becomes more of, he becomes Kristaps Porzingis expiring contract versus Kristaps Porzingis basketball player. And that's not where you want to be, right? You want to be, if we're being completely brutal about this, and we have to, you want to be some level of combination of basketball player and expiring contract, right? It would be nice to think of him just as the basketball player, but that's not the way it goes. And I say that with, I hope whatever this is, when we hear from him next, he's like, I feel great. Like it's gone. Like whatever it was is gone, or we figured it out. We figured out how to heal up. Because that's just, I want the best for him as a person, obviously. So now with Porzingis, you get into the question, and similar to Drew Holiday as well, because of the age concerns and the money left on his deal. Are we in a spot where it's all right to trade him? The Celtics are going to have to give up capital to get off of the deals. Whether that is, we're going to have to give up draft picks to get off the contracts, or we're going to have to put in Peyton Pritchard, or if a team is like, man, we really love Baylor Shireman, put him into a deal to get off of it. I don't think we're there. Again, Porzingis expiring contract that'll have value to some teams, even if it means, hey, Celtics, we need you to take back longer term money, even if it's a lot less money, but that helps us out next year and beyond. Or with Drew Holiday, I don't think it's there, just because I think Drew Holiday is good enough to push a team over the top still, where they might be like, all right, we'll deal with the out years on the contract there. And I don't know that Boston's going to be, if they're worried about dodging the second apron to save the draft pick, then why are we just going to start throwing them away to dump contracts? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Now, that's not to say they wouldn't trade Kristaps Porzingis in a first-round pick to get players who can be helpful like that, but that's a different thing, right? That's a whole different thing than we're just straight up salary dumping. Because I've been my running joke on this is Sean Marks should start the offseason standing in front of the Barclays Center, holding up a tablet that says, "Bring me your tired, you're hungry, your bad contracts. Just send him with a draft pick, and I'm happy." Because like he's got $60 million in cap space, and I don't know who he's spending it on. So of course he'd be like, "You want to send a first round pick with Porzingis? Done. Let's go." Like, doesn't really change anything for the Nets long term, except now I have one more pick in my stash that I can eventually use somehow. But I just don't know that the Celtics are there or feel the need to do that at this point.